I'm sure this is an approach that you get all the time, but your project is absolutely immense and has different, several completely separate systems within it. Can you talk about that, not in terms of what you're doing, but really in terms of the pros and cons of that scale of opportunity? So obviously you've had interest from majors, you've had investment from majors. I'm sure those conversations continue, but sort of the scale, the location, how that plays into the opportunity that you have here.
That it definitely is a challenge. It's a great opportunity for us, though, and I'm really glad that we made that decision to stake that ground, because nobody had ever looked at it for gold in the past. And once we found that Carlin-style mineralization, we staked the entire belt of carbonates. And it can be a challenge, but at the same time, I always like to kind of use that trilogy analogy. They have a belt, and we have an entire belt. We're just a little bit earlier on in the stage. So you get the base metals. We've seen that we have a silver, lead, zinc discovery out to the east that we've just never really followed up, because we're a gold company. So we've got the Ocelot, and you've got the Tiger, high grade intrusion related gold, and then you've got Carlin style mineralization. We're blessed with so much mineralization in that belt, but the challenge is you got to have pretty deep pockets to be going after that. And it's great when the markets are booming in 2010 and 11. We can make you can raise money and it's easy, but that's the opportunity. We're very pragmatic and systematic about how we've advanced our company. We've always had about $10 million as our baseline in the company. We don't want to dilute our shareholders, but we need to systematically move the project forward. So there's an opportunity there, and with the project being unencumbered with no royalties and such a large package, it really allows us the flexibility to be creative in how we can benefit our shareholders.
So I actually want to follow up on that somewhat. What is your financial position right now? You like to have a solid cash balance in the bank, but obviously another exploration season approaches, as it always does. So what's your approach there? And you already have one strategic investor. Would you be interested in having others? Are there others who are interested?
Absolutely. I can't speak to who might be interested, but
come on.
We're open to it, of course. And when we had the deal with VRIC, it was a great opportunity, and we learned a lot. And we actually made the project much better. So it's still a huge opportunity. And that's just the evolution of projects. So yes, we're open to it. We can divvy up the project in many different ways. So what's the second question?
Just what is the financial position now? Right. Are you financing? What sort of scale of project, of program would you like to do this summer? Yeah.
So we've got about 10 million right now. So we've got lots of cash. Last year we did a $3.5 million program. What we're going to do is wait to get our resource. So we look at the block model and look at the domains and see what we want to do. We might put a little bit more effort into the Tiger. We learned a lot about our drilling around the intrusion at the Pluton. And we might just get back into a systematic. The challenge around that Pluton is we don't have the exposure that we had out of the eastern end, where you have a lot of oak crop. Mm-hmm. So it's a little bit more blind. So you've got to be a little bit more systematic and use your geophysics and different techniques. Regardless, we've got cash. Probably have the opportunity to raise money if we wanted to. We'd flow through, but we don't have to. That's the beauty. So.
Okay. Okay, Greg, I'm going to move over to you. Can you talk about? This is. When someone who doesn't know metallic looks at the map, their first question is probably, how on earth do you end up with a land package that's right adjacent, that's part of an incredibly well-known silver district, but yet has seen very limited modern exploration? So you just want to touch on how that came to be, because I think that's pretty important to the story.
Yeah, I think you raise a good point. The Kino District, because it was discovered at the turn of the century, has had this long history of kind of smaller groups coming in and working on it. The western part of the district, where Alexco is focused, was consolidated early on, but the central part of the district and to the east was held by a number of individual parties. So we actually put together 40 different parties to get to the land package of 166 square kilometers. It took some time. In fact, one of our directors, Bill Harris, he likes to joke he started as a kid, putting ground together in the Kino District. And that's not too far from the truth. Literally, some of these relationships go back decades. And so it was a labor of love. In the last couple of years, we managed to put together some big blocks, stake some up, some open ground that opened up and really take advantage of some new ideas that we're pursuing, particularly on the east. So it it has taken patience. It has taken do that, but we saw the strategic value in acquiring that ground at the bottom part of the metal price cycle, knowing that we're in a mature district that's found deposits. They say the best place to find a mine is next to an existing one. So we know we're in the right terrain. We've got the right rock type. So we're now employing a systematic exploration process very similar to what Alexco has done so successfully, and building on that great work that they've done. And we think there are discoveries in our future.
So you've already tagged into one or two, I mean, certainly zones that look fantastic. You have a multitude of targets. What is your approach to focusing your? I mean, you can only do so much in a season with a certain amount of dollars. So, would you prefer to test a whole bunch of different targets and demonstrate that there's a huge scale of opportunity across a lot of targets? Would you prefer to focus in on one and delineate a resource? What's your approach to it?
Yeah, so we've been spending about $2 million or a little more a year in the district here the last couple of years, which we can get a lot done for that kind of budget. It's not huge, but it is a balance between continuing to pursue these more advanced stage targets where we're offset drilling, we're hitting good grades, we're trying to understand where the veins get thicker, where the better grades are to vector along those.
Yeah.
So, and then balancing that type of work with the early stage soils and large targets. So it's really, it's kind of a balance between those, prioritizing those zones that we think we can move to maybe resources the most rapidly, as well as stepping out on some of these really big soil targets which have such a big footprint, and understanding, wow, a 5 kilometer long soil anomaly, that's pretty exciting. We haven't seen anything quite that big in the district before. 100 grams of silver in that type of soil anomaly. Well, that's something they'd mine in Mexico open pit. So pretty exciting to be looking at those as well. So I think you're going to see a combination of us focusing on the couple of advanced targets we've got, 3 advanced targets: Caribou, Homestake, and Formo, and then also trying to get those first recon holes into some of the best targets out there on the eastern part of the district.
Not being afraid of a multitude of targets is certainly evident in the fact that you added another project. So adding La Platosa when you had a project that already had so much going on, that's a big move to make. But obviously, it helps you to counter the seasonality, which is one of the downsides of working in the Yukon.
Yeah, it does have a little bit broader seasonal window than what we see in the Yukon. But sometimes you have to be at the right place at the right time, and when an opportunity to have a system like that comes through the door, we took a look at it and said, "Wow, this looks really interesting. Hasn't had modern exploration on it. We think we can add a lot." I mean, our team in part is the team that expanded Galore Creek, which is a alkalic system here in British Columbia. Of any team out there that could take on an alkalic system and the related epithermals associated with that, I think we were really well suited, and we thought that was a good fit for the team.
There's actually a fair shortage of alkalic specialists. I have found recently. Anyways, Graham, do you want to talk a little bit about? You were saying, if you look back at ATAC's share price, you said it was easy to raise money back in 2010. You guys had the combination of an incredibly exciting new discovery, not just a new discovery, but a new kind of gold in Yukon at the peak of a bull market. So that obviously worked really well. ATAC went to like $9 or something crazy, didn't it? But now we're going into, in my estimation, a stronger market again. It certainly looks that way. A district scale land position with significant resources already developed, has some optionality interest there. And you probably don't want to be described as an optionality play. People don't love that. But that sort of adds a layer of interest to the story, doesn't it? Especially when you're referencing Trilogy as sort of a comparable.
Yeah, exactly. And things are starting to move in this space right now, and a lot more inquiries about the project. So again, going back to we admittedly aren't a miner, so we could take on the Tiger, but there's an opportunity with the Tiger. This is it's already a high margin oxide, high grade little plum. There's very few of these around the world. We could carve that out maybe,
right.
and get into a position where we're not always going back to the market. I'm very sensitive to diluting our shareholders. I mean, our company's been around 20 years. We've never consolidated it. We have 158 million shares out. It's not bad. I mean, there's not that many companies. I don't know if there are, but we're very sensitive to our shareholders, and we want to do the right thing and be fiscally responsible while still moving the project forward the best possible way. So there's a lot of opportunity. We're very fortunate. We have a number of targets. Like, for example, the airstrip. back in, I think it was 2015, I can't remember the exact date, but we drilled it with a RAB. We wanted to scale back, be very nimble with the RAB drill, and we got 15 meters of 1.5 grams in a RAB drill. We don't have it, but we need to get down there with a diamond drill. We could be sitting on a very large, not even that low grade deposit right
oxide
there.
deposit right beside Tiger.
Yeah, when we have our tech meeting in a couple weeks here, we're going to be proposing that. Let's just put one big deep hole into an airstrip, and whammo, all of a sudden, we're back.
Yeah, it doesn't take a lot in a good market. It doesn't for the exploration potential or the potential that you see if you spend some time with the project to suddenly become obvious to the market, and that can make a big impact. Greg, I'll just go back and ask one more question. This alluvial royalties side of things is a pretty interesting, unusual component to the metallic business model. There's not a lot of explorers who have that. Can you talk a little bit about, it's taken a while, obviously, to get this ramped up, but can you talk about what kind of contribution that might make, what kind of impact that might make for metallic as placer miners do start taking advantage of the land that you have available?
Yeah, it's kind of an idea that a lot of people don't realize. In the early days at NovaGold, we actually survived during that 1999-2001 market because of our sand and gravel business in Nome, Alaska, and we had a couple of placer miners that were mining on that ground. So it allowed us, as Graham said, to survive without dilution in those deep, dark days. So the opportunity came along for us to pick up this land package. Wasn't that we were thinking necessarily, hey, we're going to jump into the placer mining business, but we realized the skill set of acquiring ground, permitting it, doing exploration is things that a lot of these placer operators, they're smaller companies, they don't have exploration teams, that we could kind of provide a service. And then our contribution is that land package that gives them 5-10 years of production, and we just take our share in the percentage of gold that they produce. So over time, we see the ability to have 10-15 operators producing. A modest size operation in the Klondike is 1,000 ounces. Some of the bigger ones are producing 10,000 ounces a year. So if we can take 10 to 15% of that production every year, that can turn into a very meaningful business for a junior mining company. So the Australia Creek is the extension of the Indian River. And the Indian River drainage produces 50 to 60% of all the gold produced in the Yukon today. And they didn't mine Australia Creek because historically those bucket line dredges needed water and power, and that was coming from Australia Creek. So it's unmined, virgin ground, the continuation of the Indian River. So we think we've got the same benches, we've got the same geology, and so we're just starting to bring people in with the vision that this could be long-term, large-scale alluvial production in the Klondike, really the growth for the Klondike, if you will.
Cool. I think that's a good touchstone on all of the bits and pieces. They are obviously much deeper stories, so please come up and ask these gentlemen more questions to dive in further. But thank you so much for your attention, and I think somebody else will be coming up on stage shortly. Thank you.